Good morning, welcome. This is absolute reality. This is it. This is the real thing. The dullness of taking things for granted. Well, of course it's real. You know, what else would they face? What the fuck? How can this be real? How can this be here? What's putting this here? This is inconceivably bizarre. This is inconceivably awesome. What's going on here? What is this? How is this here? Why is this here? Where is it? I'm just right here, but where is it? What's it in? But, you know, this is, don't let yourself get numb to the seeming constancy, the seeming normalcy of this. Sure, it's normal, but it's normal, inconceivable weirdness. It's normal, inconceivable. There's no words for how bizarre this is. And it's not just poetry, it's not just theater. This is really, really, really strange. You know, check it out, let yourself feel it, be alive to it. You know, don't just be not, well, you know, here we are, you know, the spiritual talk. You know, I hear Adyashanti's talking next to me, right? That's what it's like, you know, just this right now, bang, always like, wow, light is present. How is that happening? Consciousness? What the fuck is consciousness? How can this be perceived? How can this be known? What's happening here? I mean, you know, it's intense, it's bizarre, it's insane, it's, you know, let yourself awaken to how vitally weird this is.
Are you out of steam?
Is that funny? Is that funny?
No, I have heard it was funny.
It was awesome. Okay.
I like
Yeah, hallelujah. Yeah, hallelujah.
Get some more chocolate.
No, for real though, hallelujah, you know. Just check it out. Let yourself feel alive. Feel the weirdness of this life force that you're here, that this is happening. You know, I mean, this is the essence of yoga. This is fucking beyond the pale, beyond any pale. It's like real. How can real be real? How can is be is? How can this be this? How can you be you? You know, how can your life possibly be happening? How can this world possibly be happening? We're walking around on a big fucking sphere floating around in nothingness. Or if you back up a little, it's a little fucking sphere. It's a little ball. It's like just floating in nothingness. Like, yeah, that's normal. You know, well, it is normal. It's completely normal. There's this little tiny little dot, this little sphere that's just floating around in nothingness. And here we are, this tiny floating around, not getting all bent out of shape about who's president or something. You know. Like, really? You know, wake up and smell the weird. So this is, you know, this is important. It's important to appreciate the gravity, to appreciate the magnitude of the spiritual quest. This is not just some little sort of sit back, oh, I wonder what's going on here. It's kind of interesting. Let me look into it philosophically. It's like, man, this is nuts. How can this be? You know, it's huge. It's vital. It's real. It's right here, right now. Check it out. That's the entirety of spirituality. That's the entirety of yoga. And that's why I'm here. Ask yourself why you're here. You know, what are you doing? So, anyway, what should we talk about today?
I got my money's worth.
You're a cheap date. So the cutting edge of yoga is noticing the strangeness of experience. You know, you're with normalcy, you're with dullness. Here you are sitting in a room, lots of pictures around. There's a talk going on. You're sitting in a chair, cool, normal, duh, same old, same old. But then you notice something, anything. It's like, wow, you know, just wow. That right there is a little crack opening into what's going on here. This is bizarre. You know, and that's the cutting edge of yoga, is always this, you know, seeing through the normalcy, seeing through the dullness, seeing through the taking for granted. You know, when you were born, you weren't taking anything for granted. It wasn't like, well, here I am in the world, you know. That was kind of weird being, you know, going through my mother's vaginal canal, and here I am, you know, sort of gasping for breath. Pretty strange. It wasn't like that, is it? It's like, ah! And that's what it's like right now. If you feel what's really happening, it never changed. You know, you never grew up. You're still just like, what's going on here? You didn't know then, you don't know now. But check out that not knowing. It's really, really cool. Because it's real, it's vital, it's absolutely, you know, beyond conceivability. It's beyond getting a handle on. So for the yogi, each individual engagement is always looking for that crack in the veneer, that crack in normalcy of like anywhere where there's some wow factor. It's like, wow, what's that? You know, and you peek through, you know, push your way through it. Check it out. Get out of normalcy, get out of same old, same old.
What's the, really, when you say that, it's like completely apparent, right? And I mean, you can't even argue against that, but there's seems to be something in the psyche where I can't take what you're saying and just immediately be in this like I can, you know, ignore my stream of thinking and be like, whoa. But there seems to be some solidification in the psyche that makes it not as apparent on a day-to-day basis, and it's not something you could just voluntarily flip off.
Well, maybe, but declare war on it.
What was that, sorry?
Declare war on it. You know, fight your way out. You know, just tear your way through it. You know, and you're here. You know, you're not sitting home drinking beer and watching a football game. Is it the right season? Probably the wrong season. Okay, that shows how out of the loop I am.
They have a new football league, by the way.
A new football league.
Yeah.
See, there you go. See everything. Newness, inconceivability, newness everywhere you look. So yeah, the mind, you know, interpret like we talked yesterday. You weren't here, but you caught up.
I'm synced up.
There's these two worlds. There's the world of interpretation, the world of dullness, the world of normalcy, the world where you know what's going on, you know who you are, you know what everything is. And then there's a real world, which is just, wah! Just this. And the challenge of yoga is to fight your way out of that world of dullness and normalcy to this actuality, which is the only place you ever have been. And the world of normalcy doesn't really exist. It's a fantasy in your imagination. So all of this dullness and this, you know, non-noticing of how weird this is your imagination. It's not even real. It's not even here. Your mind is putting it here. So, you know, invalidate it. Tear your way out. Look around it. Explore it. Poke at it. Challenge it. By hook or by crook. Is the door locked? Is the door locked? Okay, thanks.
What?
What? Hello?
Wait a second. This door locked.
Oh, I think John Aston may be there. Sorry, back to business.
So, it's a, I can't call it a trick, something to do. Close the eyes, imagine you can't even, it's impossible, but there's always something going on. Imagine there's nothing going on and then just open the eyes. But before the labels show up, it's just.
Yeah. Well, here's a really good trick. Here's a really good trick from Satsang. Ah! That wasn't very good. See, my throat was better. Ah! There's like a microsecond where it's just like, and then it comes back in. Your mind comes back in. Or it set off a firecracker.
Right.
Or like, you know, a snare drum, a really loud sound, something like that. And there's a moment just mechanically where your experience is uninterpreted.
Cold shower.
Cold shower, very cold shower. That first instant is like, if my throat worked better, that would have been more effective. I apologize. Technical difficulties. I think there's a few seats if you want to come in. There's one over here, a couple here. But we talked yesterday, you know, at length about all sorts of different aspects of this. You know, you're always at a fork in the road. You're always at a fork in the road. The mind is always interpreting, and direct experience is always present. So that, you know, the art form, the art of being able to notice the raw experience that is always present, and developing that is what yoga consists of. You're not going to be able to shut down the interpretive mind. It's not going to happen. But it doesn't need to happen. All you need to do is see what it is, see that it is inaccurate and irrelevant. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's all just fantasy. So all these narratives, all these, you know, here we are, we're in this is a spiritual talk, and we're in San Rafael, and we're sitting in chairs looking at each other, and I'm making sounds and blah, blah. All of that is just not true. What is true can't be said. But that is not true. It's true as far as it goes, but it goes zero far. It goes like, stops before it even starts, compared to what's here. And so the art of yoga is to develop sensitivity and awareness of engagement with direct experience that is uninterpreted. And this is doable because you always are fully engaged with direct experience, which is uninterpretable. It's just a matter of noticing that fact, noticing that you already are fully in not knowing. You already are fully in transcendental being. But you're not going to get from interpretation to that. You're always at this fork in the road. And you're trying to move down one fork, and then where are you? You're at the fork in the road. You're always at this fork in the road. Another fork is never going to go away. But it doesn't need to go away. The narratives, the story doesn't need to stop. It's just a story. And you come to see that it's just a story. And then once you see that, then you're not encumbered by it. It's just a mind telling a story. It may as well be a fairy tale.
What is the Is the primary sense of the meanness as like a objective thing based just on the sensations in the body?
Everything you just said is wrong. Nothing of what you just said has any reality whatsoever.
No, that's what I mean. Is like I'm trying to inspect sort of the illusion that this is a me, and that's an outside world.
It's a pure fiction. It's not based on anything.
Seems to be based on sensations, though, because like if I
Yeah, it seems to be, but sensations aren't sensations. Look at what sensations are. Just look at sensations. Don't worry about trying to figure out how things happen. Just look at sensations and see that they're not sensations. What are they? I don't know. Can't say. Sensations aren't sensations. Nothing is anything. Sensations are not sensations. What are they? Yeah, but check it out. You know, trying to figure things out and structuralize it is just the mind, you know, trying to create a holding pattern. You know, the idea is not to walk up to the edge of the cliff and carefully measure how far down it is. The idea is to throw yourself off the cliff with wild abandon.
Can you inch yourself to the edge of the precipice and give it a quick look?
Well, you're trying to do that. The problem is you're going to discover there is no cliff and you're already falling. The cliff is in your imagination. Your mind's busy, very, very busy trying to tell you, it's okay, you're standing on a cliff. You're looking over the edge. But there's not really a cliff. This is free fall. You're in infinity fall. You're infinity falling through infinity infinitely. That's all that's ever been happening, all that ever will happen. There's no you, there's no world, there's none of this stuff. And yet, all of this stuff is exactly that. Nothing is negated. This doesn't get erased. But it's not anything. All these words, all these descriptions are utterly, completely, absurdly wrong. They have nothing to do with anything.
Peter, you said when Foucault asked you about sensations, it seems contradictory because yesterday we were talking about feeling into experience and being.
Mm-hmm.
So is that feeling? I mean, when I think of feeling, I think of sensations.
Sure. Well, you start off, it seems like sensations, and you start off feeling like feeling. But if you do it well, you go into it and you discover that, wow, what I was calling sensations is really mysterious. I don't know what it is. What I'm calling feeling into it is really mysterious. I don't know what it is. So you start off thinking you're feeling into sensations, but you end up where? You don't end up with sensations. You don't end up with feeling. You end up with mystery. And that's the whole point.
When you're feeling intimately into beingness or experience, there's probably not any way to do it wrong. It's just the act.
Yes, right, exactly. No way to do it wrong. Yeah, very good. Just do it. It's a good slogan. Just do it. That's the other slogan.
Yeah. No, just do it.
I'll just do it. It had to be there.
The new 90s.
I mean, nothing is anything. There's nothing. There's nothing. Anything you say that is no is not that. There's nothing. It's not negated. It's this. But this isn't even this. It's just. So the mind comes up with, oh, there's this and there's that, and I got to do this with that to figure out this, and you get from here to there. And all of that is just bullshit. It's just a tissue of lies. The mind is a liar. Mind makes up all of this stuff that does not even exist So why give it any attention? Why waste your time with it? Especially why devote your life to it, you know? Wake up and smell the endlessly falling through infinity.
I feel like sometimes I'm just on the edge of something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to describe this, but it's like there must be. I think there's a subtle expectation, of something else. Like there's this. Oh yeah, I'm almost there.
Well, you're always almost there, but there's no there. It's just almost. It's always almost. It's never anything. It's always almost. The almost is good. The there isn't.
So you never arrive.
You never arrive. There's no arriving. It's just endless free fall without any landing. There's no resolution.
Yeah.
I call my website the Open Doorway because you walk. The experience is an open doorway, and you walk through it, which takes you to the open doorway. You walk through it, which takes you to the open doorway. You walk through it. You don't ever get anywhere. You're just endlessly walking through these almost there's. But there's no there. It's just the almost, endless almost. It's, irresolvability. It doesn't resolve. It never lands. It doesn't ever become anything. It's always pregnant with the possibility that and then all you get to is more pregnant with the possibility forever. It never delivers. There's no ending. There's no arrival. There's no achievement. It's just free fall.
But the ending of that expectation of a resolvability to it all, right?
Well, it's not an ending. It's just seeing the absurdity of it. Why expect or hope for something that can't possibly happen?
Yeah, so it's like the ending of hope, really.
Yes.
No hope.
Hope is the great torturer. Hope is pain. Hope is suffering. Hope is hell. Hope is delusion. There's absolutely nothing to hope for.
And in New Age literature, it's revered as like the be it and all.
That's a comment on the New Age literature. Welcome to Never Neverland. Give us all your money, and you'll be happy forever. You'll never have a negative thought, and you'll always find a parking spot. except for the parking spot part, and the negative thought part. But to give us all your money, that's locked in.
Is it so? what you were just saying is it, can that be held alongside some sense that like there's still something unfinished, like I haven't fully completely seen the way you see things?
No, the unfinishedness is the way I see things. Unfinished is all there is. There's no such thing as finished. There's no finish. There's nothing to finish. There's no arriving. There's no landing. There's no achieving. It's always a question mark and never an exclamation point.
So this, so humor me for a second. So this sort of, I'm exaggerating a bit, but this deluded idea that, you know, if I do enough yoga, or if I listen to enough talks, then I'm going to see it like 100%.
If you do enough yoga, you'll realize you didn't need to do any yoga. So why not quit while you're ahead? On the other hand, you can do the yoga and then come to actually see that, and then you'll know that you wasted your time, but you won't have wasted your time because you'll know it.
Yeah, but you've said that, right? That everybody who does the yoga reaches that same conclusion, but it's kind of this weird thing where you have to do the math for yourself.
Well, you have to see it to see it.
Yeah.
And once you see it, you realize you didn't have to see it because you already knew it. But you have to do the math to see it in order to realize that you didn't have to do the math to see it.
Right. It's this paradoxical thing, right? So.
So yesterday, we sort of began at the beginning. Today, we're beginning at the end. Today, we're starting at the end.
It's exhilarating.
The end is where the fun stuff is.
Yeah.
Of course, the end, in the beginning is exactly the same as the end, but in the beginning, you don't know that. When you get to the end, then you see that then you see where you really have been all along. And what's more is you see that you knew it. You always knew. You always knew you never knew anything. I mean, you know, be honest with yourself, Jesus. Has anyone ever had a clue? You know, everyone knows they're faking it.
You have a page on your website about transmission.
Mm-hmm.
Any suggestions on how to open ourselves up to your transmission?
You're doing it. Transmission is a lot like getting hit by a car. If you go out and play in traffic, the chances of getting hit by a car are a lot higher. This is the traffic right here.
And it's as deadly.
More.
Yeah.
More, yeah. Guaranteed that.
Ain't no coming back from this one.
Yeah.
No reincarnation here. We're going all the way.
Peter, I was just thinking about the serpent that eats its tail.
Mhm.
What is it called? Ouroboros?
Ouroboros. Ouroboros?
Ouroboros.
I don't know.
And that's, to me, that's how it seems. It always, comes
Mhm.
back. But then I think about infinity, trying to sort of seeing how those two reflect one another.
They're one and the same.
I have trouble with the infinity with that. That seems to be a repetitive thing. I know it's not.
It's
because
not
it's always
repetitive, it's
moving.
continuous.
Continuous.
Sure. The snake hits its tail.
Yeah,
And it keeps eating.
right.
Forever. What happens?
Mm.
So when you say it's the end, the sense I get then is that it's the beginning, but it's the end of the search to arrive or to be in that where that landing stability sense of resolution state. So it's the end of that and the awareness that it is just one open doorway after another. Without it being a loss
Yes.
of not arriving.
Yes.
And that is the arrival.
Yes.
That continuum.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a continuum, but and it is all you say, but be careful. It's not an actual arrival, and it's not an actual continuum. But that's a fine way to refer to it. What it is
But it can be a relief of the end of the search, that seeking.
yes,
That seeking
absolutely.
and the search. Of
Yeah.
The waiting to arrive.
Yeah, it's the end of lies. It's the end of pretense.
Yeah. Hallelujah.
Yeah, hallelujah. It's definitely hallelujah. That it is, for sure.
Peter, is it really like we don't know what anything is? I mean, everything is, if you could really see everything's unresolvable. And so, yeah, we don't know anything. But then in conjunction, there's still a constant wanting to know, through thoughts and interpretations that continue. and a constant questioning, what is this? What is this sensation? What is this thought? How does it feel? And is it just really a coexistence of all that?
It
Like-
coexists, but initially you may be hanging your hopes on the wanting to know and on the investigation. And as you mature, you let go of all that, and the mind may continue to investigate and want to know and try to be figuring things out and all that. But you're just like, you're saying,
Really pay attention.
yeah, screw off. Who cares? This is irrelevant. It's just noise. It's just the ramblings of a crazy person. The mind is insane because it always tries to construct something that cannot be constructed. The mind is Don Quixote. It's always trying to do that which can't be done. So why give it any attention? It's crazy. The mind is crazy.
I think there's just still something within me that still bites it, like still feels like I'm close,
Sure, of course.
getting something.
Well, the mind is always fishing. It's always like dangling these carrots on a string, trying to seduce you into paying it. Wait a minute. This one's close. This is a good one. Come on, check it out over here. Follow me.
Yeah, no.
But it's all lies. It's all lies. And so yoga is seeing that, and then you're mature. You don't bother to follow the mind. It won't stop. But who cares? It's not actually about anything.
It's almost like
It's the insane pursuit of trying to achieve the unachievable. The mind wants to get a handle on things. There is no handle and there are no things. But the mind's going to continue to try and do that, so why give it any attention? It's much more interesting to be with the actuality. You can dip into the mind and it can be a fun game. It can be entertaining. But it's not, it's never, don't make the mistake of assuming that there's any hope there. There's no hope that the mind will ever do anything whatsoever. Mind is never going to get anywhere, even as much as it claims that it will, and as much as it tries to.
An interesting dichotomy to a certain extent is using, when we talk about investigating, it conjures up a notion that the mind is required.
Right.
Which reinforces itself.
Yeah, the mind doesn't do yoga.
Right.
The mind appears, the mind doesn't see it.
Right.
The mind is not the knower. The mind is not a knower. The mind is just an apparition. The knower does yoga, and the knower is this itself, which is you, which is the absolute. This absolute infinity that is right here is what you are and is what is seeing your experience.
That's where all the intelligence really comes in.
Yeah, it is. It's pure intelligence. There is no intelligence other than that. Absolutely.
You said the knower does yoga. Is the knower and the witness the same?
Yeah. Although, there's not a knower and a witness, there's just this. All of these names, all of these distinctions, drawing distinction between this and that, and all this word for this and that word for that, is all a bunch of hogwash. It's only one thing. But yeah.
I think we get in trouble though when we confuse the knower with the mind. The mind.
Yes, you do. And yet it's subtle and it's weird. It's endlessly weird. It's all screwed up because the mind is an apparition and the knower is not an apparition, and yet all apparitions are nothing other than the knower. So it's You can't resolve it. You can't take sides. There's no sides. It's a Mobius strip. Snake eating its tail.
Yeah.
You know, you start anywhere and you follow along and you end up everywhere else. So why bother to try to draw maps? You know, you start with a knower and a known. You know, the knower and apparitions, and you start with the knower and you follow it along and you end up with the apparitions. When you start with the apparitions, you follow it along, you end up with the knower. So are they you know, where these two things? Or what things? There's no things. There's no two. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. Just this.
Okay, I'm going to try this a little complex. So, okay, yesterday we talked about, feeling, feeling intimately into beingness.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I realized I was doing it with my mind.
Right.
But now you just said you want to do it with the knower, the witness.
Yeah.
So I just tried it. And it's so like airy. It's like
Yeah.
nothingness doing nothing with nothingness.
Yeah.
It felt like so delicate. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, rocket.
Delicate's a good word.
Delicate's a very good word. Subtle's a good word. Nuanced is a good word. Fucking weird is a good phrase. Those of you that have standards of speech, I apologize. I'm throwing around curse words today. I don't mean to offend anybody if you're easily offendable. It's just about the exuberance of my whatever.
And then within that freedom, there's quite a bit of enjoyment or pleasure.
There is.
Yeah, which is really satisfying from going from like moments of like just seeking, was never satisfied, to arriving of not arriving.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot more enjoyment, pleasure. You could say living in the moment, whatever it may be. It's, yeah, there's a freedom there. It's
Sure
really
is.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You know, and back in biblical times, in terms of how it's translated, Jesus called this the kingdom of heaven.
I was just playing around with feeling intimately into beingness.
Yeah, good.
And I tried to do it, and I was doing well. I think I had to let the witness do it.
Uh-huh.
And when I was with the witness, it seemed it was pointless to even do all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seemed like everything was so wonderful.
Yeah.
It didn't even need to go feel into.
Yeah, the feeling's already happening. The intu's already happening. It comes with. You know, if it seems like you need to do anything, you're overthinking it. It's already a done deal. It's this that already is this. You know, and you're it. You're it. So you're doing it. It's being done. Blah 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 blah.
And if I think anything needs to be done, it will do it.
Yeah. Yeah. To the extent that there is doing, sure. It does everything to the extent there's an everything to be done.
Here, the mind comes up with, at least my mind, what about like the extreme suffering or the poverty or the war or the torturing or the whatever, those interpretations, they're on one level, they're very real, and they're experiences that have happened to people. And they might not realize the oneness of them all, and they're very identified in that moment to their bodies or whatever may be happening. You know, how do you see that?
This can look like anything. This is not limited to certain flavors or qualities of experiential characteristics. It can look like anything. It can have any flavor. Any moment can look like anything. At any moment, right now, 30 seconds from now, someone could burst in the door with an Uzi and kill us all. Or burst in with an Uzi and very slowly, methodically, disable us all and then kill us all extra slowly to inflict extra pain and suffering. How about that? Let's go for the gold.
Lock the door. Lock the door after John came in.
I don't know. John looks very suspicious to me.
Yeah. He's sketching his plan.
Anything, it can look like anything, but it is what it is, and that's how it is. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's not like it's always good, or it's never bad, or it's always nice. It's never, painful. It is what it is, but it's always this, and it's never what it seems to be. And if it seems to be partialized, that's as bad as the worst torture anyway. I mean, the true torture is orienting to this in terms of your concepts of it. That's the most insidious, most horrible torture. The physical pain is nothing next to that.
Isn't concepts what makes it physically painful?
Yeah, concepts. This is inconceivable. You can't know what it is. It's just this, bang. End of story. Is it pain? Is it pleasure? I don't know. As soon as it's pain or pleasure, you're trying to figure it out. You're putting labels on it. And the labels are never true. They're never complete. They're never comprehensive. They're never accurate. Never.
Something thinks it needs a concept in order to experience.
Yeah, but that's lies. That's the mind trying to usurp. It's a mutiny. If you like mythologies, you can think of the mind as like the devil. And the devil and all his minions of hell are at a war with heaven, trying to take over heaven. But good luck, it ain't going to happen. Because heaven is everything, and the devil can't win. But it keeps trying.
Is there like, for example, for planning purposes, you kind of have to believe in some concept of a tomorrow or something like that, right? So is there a way to live where even those, where you're free of even like the practical concepts?
You don't believe it. You don't need to believe in anything. You know, you get a phone call and someone says, hey, let's have lunch tomorrow. That's happening now. There's no tomorrow. And so you pick up, you say, sure, why not? You look in your calendar, that happens now. You see, and you look on the thing that's designated tomorrow, and there's nothing on it. So you say, sure, and you pick up a pen. That happens now, and you put ink in your calendar, and that happens now. Or these days, you know, you're like that in your phone. That happens now. And then sometime later, you pick up your phone and you check it. That happens now, and you say, oh, I have lunch, you know, tomorrow. But tomorrow, to have lunch tomorrow, the thought that statement happens now. You don't have to believe in tomorrow. You can use concepts, but concepts are not concepts because they're instantaneous energy events, which are danced with in the moment. That's what happens. The instantaneous energy events danced with in the moment. That's what there is. Concepts aren't any more special than tying your shoes. I mean, how do you tie your shoes? Oh, but don't you have to tie your shoes if you want to, you know, go out and get blisters on your feet? Sure, tie your shoes. Why not? But tying your shoes is this here, which doesn't involve shoes and it doesn't involve tying. It's this. You know, you're putting a date in your phone. It's not a date and not a phone. It's this here. It's always instantaneous, present, transcendental energy dance. Functioning happens spontaneously, transcendentally, irrationally, in the instant. There is no planning. There is no conception. Planning and conception is just words for this instantaneous energy dance that's happening in the instant. And not planning and no conceptions is another words for this instantaneous energy dance that's happening in the instant. So I think this is a nice point to break. Why don't we take a 5-minute break?
Of course, yeah, what are you guys doing? Just catching up? This is his.
We need a babysitter. We need a babysitter later. That we don't have. I don't know if we need a golden shower. Really, probably just like someone baby comes. I need sleep. There's a lady who can give me sleep.
First time at one of these times?
Yeah, now Dave's really hungry.
It was the rabbit.
I think it
that
was
brought it out.
yesterday, and she liked eating rabbit. I think she's gonna take off. Yeah.
I just had this signature.
On the registry.
I mean, literally.
We need an email from monitor and then the registry.
I think I took it out.
And tell me this isn't.
I haven't used mine in a while.
supposedly.
You shouldn't eat the fur. Not the skin. Only the rabbit meat.
I do. I was uncomfortable all night.
There wasn't any traffic today, so it's like,
What time did you have? An hour? If you
We're done by 8:30, but still, with that volume of food,
It was really nonstop since
Yeah.
5 p.m.
we just kept eating and eating.
I don't know what the
It was
Indian food,
just
but I was like,
really bad.
Really?
Yeah.
From Bombay Grouse.
twice or 3 times in a row. Like, what the hell?
What?
oh yeah, I missed that.
I
I caught the tail end of it. We were locked out.
Food is not good.
Did you have a lot of different things?
I'm like, oh, motherfucker, we're not going to.
I do need edible sugars. Feeling like my heart palpitations.
You wanna eat at the Indian buffet today? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, man.
Let's
I
do it.
had like the
Tea,
steak.
chai.
I only drank like half of it.
Yeah.
I do like the
Tea?
The Indian buffet here is pretty good.
Herbal tea is fine.
Which one?
The one around the corner.
Oh, yeah, we went yesterday.
Yeah. Hey, John.
Hey, how's it
Charlie,
going?
you had a
Are you,
question
man?
yesterday. What happened
Yeah,
to
you
it?
Good
too.
to see you. Yeah.
You forgot it.
Growing over there.
I know, right?
My
It's
God.
exponential at this point.
Unreal.
It's continuing
Ooh.
to
You ain't
percolate
seen
in.
nothing
It's
yet.
like
I know,
the
I'm
starting to
just
see
this
the
morning already.
fists come through.
Yeah.
Like,
I sent an
Alien.
inquiry to
That's right.
NH.
We used to call our,
Yeah.
our girl the alien.
Cool.
Baby,
Alien invasion.
yeah.
she's invading, she's ready.
When do you do?
May 19th.
Wow.
It was funny because like we were at the dinner with Peter the other day and he offered her a sip of his beer. And I'm like, this is the first alcoholic prasad we've ever consumed.
I'm not gonna say
You know,
no.
like you go to like an Amma retreat and like Amma eats up the plate and then everybody's licking the plate afterwards. I'm like, only Peter would serve up an alcoholic prasad. It's great. Drink up.
It's very good.
Has to be bourbon though, not beer.
Yeah.
I've never tried Taj. Taj Mahal.
Yeah. Idea. You just get up.
Peter's like the anti-glue man. Love it.
He's got some energy today.
Have you seen
Yeah,
it?
man.
Yeah, I think he had like a double shot in the coffee today.
It was like a TKO. Nobody had any questions for like a good 10 minutes after that.
We're so digesting it.
Ah!
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I think it's probably.
Oh, you missed the first few minutes, right?
We were locked out there.
Oh, he started off with like some showers. You gotta catch it on YouTube. It was really funny. Like first 4 minutes, he's just like, whoa, this. And everybody was just like, whoa. Whoa.
Nice. Yeah.
Isn't that something? Do you have it the right side up?
Details.
Yeah. It's been that long since cassette players.
What are those things?
How have you been?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did you drive up from Santa Cruz this
I
morning?
did.
How far a drive is that?
Oh, you live in Santa Cruz.
Yeah. It's like with no traffic, which is rare. And today there was no traffic, like an hour and 40.
Mhm.
Nice to see you guys.
Yes.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. I was glad you enjoyed the book.
Oh man, it's great. It's like I mean it's a lot of what Peter says, but like extremely well organized. So it's like you
can't get him to write anything.
Yeah. So you can actually give that book to somebody and be like, well, this is all the crazy stuff that I've been talking about that doesn't make sense when I say it, you know? But
he had a really funny reaction. He liked it a lot, but he said it's like he had this kind of like the part of like attempting to communicate what can't be communicated is like so real. You know, like he just said like whatever you say is like completely wrong, right?
Right.
So it's just such a paradox because you're trying to convey something of it, you know, in the written word, like in the whole book, right? And he's like, and as I'm reading it, I'm just going like, you can feel his own like discomfort with attempting to communicate what can't be communicated. But he said it's like it doesn't mean not to do it because here he is speaking. Right? It's just such a weird. You literally can't say it. Whatever you say is wrong.
I got a picture of it earlier.
I don't see the words.
Feeling well is about the best you can hope. I say it pretty well. This book is really good. Did I show you the sense of pitch? Yeah, I haven't been reading it sequentially, but I've read about 70 to 80% of it. Yeah.
You're talking about hearing before seeing?
Or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
It's better like that, because then like you get hit with whatever you.
Well, the heat is on. Want me to make it more? Are you
Yes,
cold?
please.
Everyone's cold? I'll turn it up.
I may, if it doesn't, I need
Yeah.
to give them.
Well, okay, yeah, it's right here if you want it. Right. I'm actually right now. I'm actually like.
Oh, they are. Oh, nice.
It just kind of comes in its own.
Where is
What are
it?
they taking from you now? They're somewhere in Colorado.
Okay. Oh, how great is that? That's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Good party.
Oh, they must have been excited.
Yeah, so
That's great.
nice to see you. You guys made it down.
And like I mean, you know.
I couldn't make it yesterday.
And you're gonna have your,
My energy's there and
for your
something
book?
will show up, you know, I guess.
Early singer play.
I'm doing something down in LA next week.
So it feels.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, hopefully maybe I'll see Stan down there.
I mean,
I was having it covered
Yeah.
this week.
I'm always
He's doing
Art.
an art video.
Oh, good to see you, Jack.
We won't have lunch. That's right, it is real.
Welcome back.
It'll be hard to top the morning intro.
That was nothing.
Gonna do a cartwheel though? Sorry.
I can't control this guy either.
I never bounced anyone from one of these talks, but it's always the first time.
Never what?
So, yes. So I'm imagining this artist that likes to dabble in trying to paint or draw or photograph or write a kind of representation of the absolute weirdness that this is. And he has an agent, or he has a curator, and he says, well, give me a few months and I'm going to figure this out. And he paints madly, or he writes madly, and the guy goes, so you ready? No, I'm still working on it. He's working on it, and he's coming up with all this in rooms filled with words or paintings of all sorts and sculptures, and this takes years, and eventually he says, I got it. Come and see it. And the guy comes to the gallery or studio. He says, here it is. And there's nothing there except everything. He has to put down the brushes, he has to stop typing, he has to stop doing anything. And it's just, that's it. Done.
Yeah. Except you don't even need to put down the brushes or stop typing.
But they get put down somehow.
Well, they get put down and picked up.
Right.
Shit happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And that's every artist, every writer. That's what they're trying to do. That's all anyone is trying to do. What else is there to do? I mean, out here in infinity, the pickings are slim. You have to kind of make it up as you go along, you know. That's sort of what we do, isn't it? Marsha, there's someone out there.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Check they don't have an Uzi.
I don't know, might spice things up a bit.
That would be the
That would
second
top,
intro.
yeah, that would top them up.
Yeah.
Exocentric.
Yeah, there's I like it. The Lama bursts in and slaughters all the students. You get it now? Do you get it now? Huh? Emptiness. I like it.
Be careful not to come to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Yesterday, you used the phrase "fake it till you make it" with regards to sigils.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of entertaining, like with a sigil or any sort of analogy with a resonance to something that's greater than itself,
Mhm.
whatever that refers to. It's just like, okay, I'm looking at this image and it seems to be like just an inert image that doesn't refer to anything.
Right.
So I'm faking it, and then, oh shit, I see what this image refers to, and that's the making it.
Sure.
And inevitably there's like making it and then falling back down into the faking it.
Mhm.
And I'm sort of seeing this as the faking it is an image of making it, having them both always be on.
Right.
So I'm sort of looking at interpretation and like the details of my life or what the world is
Right.
as being entrenched in that interpretation as an image of
Right.
not being entrenched in that interpretation.
Right.
And I can't see that now, but I'm entertaining my not seeing that now as an image of my seeing that now.
Sure.
How do,
Snake eating its tail. It doesn't come down one way or the other. And there is no one way or the other, actually. So the one way and the other way are both just when there's this and a that, it's easy to say there's this and that, and there's a third thing, which is sort of the union of the two, or the transcendence of the two. But the cool way is no, there's a this and a that, but before there's a this and a that, there's nothing. And the this and the that are just the nothing. So then at the end of the day, the this and the that has no importance.
is that 0 equals 2?
Yeah. Zero is where we started today.
Until it's off to lunch.
Did we start at 1 yesterday?
Yesterday, I don't know. Yesterday we started at a lot. Yesterday we started at some arbitrarily large number. Today we started at 0. But it's all the same. So what difference does it make? It's all imaginary. I mean, all this pretense of, is it this, is it that? Am I hitting somewhere? Am I not hitting anything? Why bother? On the other hand, what the hell, nothing else to do. Keeps you off the street, puts you on the street, whatever.
Very strange because, as you were saying earlier, even though it's never resolving, it's never landing in something definite. It's not, like I said, it's not any old nothing. It's like it's this relentless sense of something in a way.
Yeah.
So even though I can't say what that is,
yeah,
it just feels like it's on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my sense of presence.
Yeah, it's not the thought of nothing. It's not the concept of nothing. It's the actual nothing,
Right.
which is indistinguishable from the actual something.
Right. It's neither of those things.
Yeah. It's neither and not neither.
Right.
It's
Neither and both and whatever, yeah,
it's ah.
right. Yeah. But it's like, so I think sometimes, we'll hear something like, free falling, never landing anywhere in this unresolvability, and then like go to look for it as if it's something other than this.
No.
Right.
This is that.
Right.
Us sitting here in this room is free falling in infinity, never landing.
The thing that feels is totally concrete and substantial and present is free falling.
Yeah, totally. Anything, everything, nothing. Why bother to qualify it one way or the other, or not? Why not?
Right.
Yeah. There's no, you don't lose anything. You don't lose anything. It's all just, it's all just this. You can't depart from this. This doesn't depart from itself. It's always just exactly this. Whatever dance it's doing. It's not really a dance. It's not really even that, and yet it's that. Because that is not really that. It doesn't need to not be that in order to not be that.
Yeah, it's so funny all the ways that that our consciousness sort of will define or interpret or try to resolve it as being apart from it, not knowing it, not being sure about it, definitely not having realized it. It's like, no, all of that is completely wrong.
Yeah, it's one of the most popular games in town.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was it like not being realized?
What was that? What was that?
All right, I see how it is.
It's okay. You're the straight man today. Don't take it personally.
We're just free falling through infinity. There's nothing to take personally.
That's right. That's right. He's got it.
How come the why question can't be answered? And if it was answered, how would this, how come it can't be answered?
Well, the why question can be answered anywhere you like. But then try to figure out what the answer is.
When John was talking, I was just thinking about there is nothing. There is nothing.
Yeah.
But then, of course, we assume there are something. And I was thinking of the sense of freedom about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking the idea of the sense of freedom is almost, as you say, heavy-handed in that context, because there is nothing.
There's nothing.
No.
No, it's
nothing. But to me, what I feel is this freedom.
Sure. But that's poetry. So here's this indescribable nothing, and it feels wonderful. It feels free. It feels full. It feels liberating. It feels complete. It feels open-ended. It feels empty. It feels full. It feels this. It feels that. But you're just spouting poetry. You're not actually accurately describing it because it's indescribable. It's this, and bang, end of story. It describes itself. It alone describes itself. Everything else is just poetry. And as soon as you go into poetry, you're playing games, which is right. Games are wonderful because games are this. Games aren't really games. Games are nothing.
But in the next instant, you could get cut off in traffic and feel the contraction, and that would also be the same thing.
Exactly.
Right?
It's all good. It's all good. In Dzogchen, the name of the highest Buddha is everything good. Kuntu
And the sense of freedom, sort of, I mean, you wouldn't see that unless you had the contrast of the opposite. And so that's
Right,
what comes
exactly.
from that, and it's sort of,
Yeah, freedom only is freedom in the context of some lack of freedom.
right.
And there ain't no such thing.
Right.
I mean, this is free to be not free. Absolute freedom. Liberation is absolute freedom. Liberation is free to not be liberated. The final liberation is the freedom from needing to be liberated. So you see these yogis sitting on the mountaintop, wrapped solely in a single, thin cotton cloth when it's 30 below, and they're sitting there lost in meditation for thousands of years and stuff. They're all wannabes. It's like, who cares? Really? Go down to the whorehouse. Go get a beer. I mean, whatever. Watch Netflix. There's some good shows. What difference does it make?
Who's that guy who wrote the Crazy Wisdom book?
Which one?
I don't remember his name.
I got which book?
Shrimpa?
I forget. It was some Buddhist Lama, and he's apparently like
one of them.
Yeah, one of those guys. But he's got kind of a reputation of being like the guy that would go to the whorehouses and get drunk and all of that, and he was
in mythology, or let's say in history, in quasi-history, in supposed narrations of supposed history, the sort of a high water mark of that guy is a guy named Drukpa Kunle.
I think that, yeah.
Who supposedly lived 1,000 years ago or whenever. And he went around and raped women and killed people and gambled and, liberated countless beings and so on. So he's the archetype of the crazy wisdom guy. They didn't have Uzis back then, or I'm sure he would have.
For me personally, that path seems to go against my ability to work with subtlety.
Mm-hmm.
There's some feeling that in cultivating concentration as opposed to getting drunk seems to aid investigation of subtlety.
Sure. And that's right. So you take advantage of that in order to explore subtlety and to cultivate subtlety. But when you've cultivated subtlety to the ultimate degree, you'll discover there's nothing but. And so at that point, you don't need to cultivate it because there's no non-subtlety. And so at that point, you're free to be in as much coarseness as you want because it's all actually infinite subtlety. But you know it because you cultivated the subtlety. So you cultivate the subtlety in order to discover you never even need to. And yet you need to do that in order to discover that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the paradox of yoga. You need to practice yoga to discover you didn't need to practice yoga. But if you don't practice yoga, you'll never discover that you didn't need to not do it. So just not doing it is cheating. Arguably. Or maybe not.
There's a thought that comes when you say that, a cheating way out feels like to just, drink and while away my time until I die, and then that will be some kind of liberation. But then, that just seems like more mind not, because who knows what happens, but there's some notion of some desire for a way out.
Yeah.
And that seems like a way out, but then
Right.
does that does the sort of apparent trap transcend even the lifetime? And, you know, like I can go lucid in a dream, but then I'm not lucid. You know, I'm not awakened here.
Right.
Is there like an outer layer of this where you wake up here and then you're still?
Well, but see, you know, we were talking yesterday. The essence of practicality in yoga is to be where you are, to work with what seems important to you for where you are. So, and you're pointing out an example of this, which is very excellent. So, for where you are, it seems more meaningful and powerful to engage with this, you know, cultivating subtlety more carefully, and that's great. It's because you're not just bullshitting. You're not just claiming to be somewhere where you're not. You're being in the genuineness of your being as it's presenting itself, and that, you know, that reality check, that being the way you really are right here, right now, is your engagement with absolute reality. That's how it is. That's real.
Yeah.
And so by being with that real, you're as if you're short-circuiting, you're shortcutting, you know, you're being most efficiently with reality, even if it seems to be, you know, superficially in certain guises or in certain, you know, you're being doing this way instead of that way because it seems to be more valuable to you. But that's as it should be. That's great. You know, it's really, you know, in practicing yoga, it's important to be honest about where you really are at the moment and not try to, you know, cut to the end of the book. I mean, you know, the end of the math book, all the answers are there, and you can jump to the answers and say, I got it. But you don't know, you didn't do the math. For it to be powerful, you have to do the math. And doing the math means you work through the book. If you have the chops, if you're sharp enough that you can just jump to the, you know, you can skim the book and jump to the edge and get the answers, and you really do have it, then hey, more power to you. But again, that itself would be an example of a reality check of knowing where you really are and taking advantage of it. So, I mean, yeah, this is great, you know. In practice, you know, be where you are, and that's what you work with. As opposed to, you know, you hear some highfalutin, you know, oh, it's already this, and you're like, oh, okay, great. You know, if you can own that, if you can really, you know, walk the talk, then great. But if you're just posing, then that's not going to do much for you.
But the math is very simple, as you explained. You said it's just feel presence. Wouldn't that be an example of doing the math? Just
absolutely, if you do it. If
you do it, okay. So, well, it seems like I do it, but then maybe other times I don't. So you're saying do it more. Maybe you haven't done it enough.
Well, but again, that's a question you have to answer for yourself. You know, this is this whole principle we're talking about. You know, you have to have a sense of where you're at, what you're stumbling, what you're coming up against, if anything. If you're not coming up against anything, then that's it. It's like, oh, right, there's nothing. Cool, that's liberation. But if there's anything whatsoever, that, you know, it's like, yeah, but what about this?
Yeah, but those anythings are also it too, right? I mean,
well, they are theoretically, but do you see that? And if you do, yeah, cool. But do you? So that's the you know, being where you are part of it. And no one can answer those questions but you.
Would a good example of that sort of be like, let's say I hear this talk and I feel this sense of freedom and nothingness, and I'm walking around, everything's great, and then somebody comes and says something that really bothers me, and I start spinning off into some interpretations of what an asshole that person is or whatever.
Sure.
that would be a good time to then check in to see who that person is, what is it about they said, or like, see how the mind is like interpreting something that really just some sense of discomfort
Sure.
in the body or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you just be with what you're actually being with, rather than just, jumping into philosophy. I mean, I've heard that called in some circles, that's called spiritual bypass or something, where you sort of hear, oh, it's all God. It's like, oh, great, it's all God, great. And then, but you're not. But it's only true that it's all God if you know. I mean, know for real, it's all God. Just to claim it, it's like, oh, great, it's all God.
By knowing, you mean feeling into it, and
You just know the certainty. I mean, no means no. No means no.
well, there's
Just
a
say
word
no.
you can like repeat to yourself as a concept in your head that's not really
Exactly. Concepts aren't powerful. That's not knowing.
But sometimes it seems you can know, and then other times you don't.
Maybe so, and that's interesting. So you can check that out. I mean, basically, the place to practice yoga is anywhere anything seems to be any particular way. So if you seem to be knowing and then sometimes not knowing, cool, check that out. If you check out knowing and not knowing and you do it really well, you discover that knowing and not knowing are the same thing, and then you stop caring. And then at that point, there'll be no knowing and no not knowing. But as long as there is a knowing and not knowing, then, oh, okay, what's up with that? So then what's up with that becomes your cutting edge. As long as anything that seems to be any particular way is where yoga needs to be practiced, if you're interested in going the distance.
It seems kind of paradoxical when you're saying when you're not knowing is usually when you know something, like you said, when you know from a conceptual standpoint. So you're holding on to something.
Yeah.
That's kind of when you're not really knowing.
Sure.
Self-assessment gets strange for me because sometimes,
yeah,
like I feel like a clod and I'm totally stuck, and then I'll have a look at, what's going on, say, like, as you say, under the table, and become privy to these processes that are happening that I'm not aware of at the clod level.
Yeah. Self-assessment is very interesting, mainly because it's impossible. but on the other hand, you do it anyway. It's an art form. I mean, in a certain sense, learning to self-assess is the yoga. It's like, where am I at? What's happening? And you don't get an answer, so you look. And then you might get, oh, it seems to be this, it seems to be that. Cool. Great. So you found something that seems to be a certain way, then you look. But anything that, it's kind of like being at a mechanized shooting gallery. Anything that pops up, you shoot it. If it pops up, you shoot it. So anything that seems to be any particular way, bang, that's where you go. Check it out.
Peter, is there such thing as intuition then, in a sense of like the intelligence you speak of?
Yes, there is.
You don't need to say anything, just raise your eyebrows.
If I was Smush Shield, I'd raise one eyebrow, but that would be really cool. But I can't do that, so I have to do this.
You don't have that CD.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be this intuition or this deep knowing, but I'm also noticing like desires that come up and that, they lead me to do certain things, but then deep down I know I don't really know what the result is, and deep down there is like who cares? But then I do it anyway, like these
Mhm.
desires to manifest something. And I know ultimately, you know, the mind thinks, oh, you're going to manifest this and it's going to be great. You're going to be comfortable and all this stuff. But deep down, I'm like, I don't know that. But then I still go with it. That's
Mhm.
kind of like
Yeah.
what my experience has been lately. It's been interesting.
Yeah, intuition is your intuition, or let's call it your inherent knowing, is what does yoga. Your inherent knowing is your guide. Like Jiminy Cricket says, let your conscience be your guide. And discovering what that means is yoga. Because at first you think it is a certain way, you think that means something, but of course you'll be wrong. But then, you learn again, it refines itself. It's self-refining. You learn how to do it by doing it. And that's just a part of the same thing. It's like self-assessment. It's the same thing. How do you self-assess? Well, it's impossible. But your intuition is always kind of doing that. Your intuition is always kind of tell you what's going on, in a way. And learning what's up with that is unfoldment in yoga.
Yeah, because it seems like it's better to at least learn through activity, like through actions, versus like, okay, I already know deep down it's nothing, so I'm not going to do anything. Like I'm always grabbing.
Well, if you can really know that, but knowing that it's nothing doesn't mean you have to not do anything. If it's nothing, what difference does it make whether you do it or not? Because there's no it to do or not do.
She's trying to get us to buy a bigger house. Careful what you say right now.
I see. We're talking about ammunition, are we?
Really careful about how you respond to this.
I'm not going there.
You're treading on really thin ice.
That's okay. I'll give you some ammo too.
No, it's more like like my whole life. I mean, it's not just a house. No, it's like why did I do everything? Like why do I choose my career? Why did I choose this guy? Like why did I like something? Why?
Especially that. Why did I choose this guy?
Why am I at this bookstore? Why am I at this talk?
Yeah, exactly.
Like something
exactly
needs to just do it, and I don't question it. It's to learn something.
Yeah.
It's not just about that.
But that's it. But that's exactly it. Why? Who are you? What are you? Why are you doing what you're doing? What are you doing? All of that is this. All of that is the exploration of this, and in a way, the intuition is what's driving you.
Yeah.
What we call the intuition. Of course, intuition isn't really intuition, since nothing is anything.
Yeah, I don't know what it's really called, if it's intuition or not, but there is something.
But there's nothing that's called anything. Names are all wrong, so you don't need to worry about what it's called. The point is what it is.
But I mean, it's kind of it's a fine line, because let's say I could say that my desire is, or intuition is to just have more.
Right.
But then sometimes that's not really to be trusted, because there's an inner knowing that more, better, different isn't really going to get me something.
That's right. So like I say, opening to what the intuition really is part and parcel of yoga. And at first, you sort of concretize it and say, oh, it's this, it's that. It's the same thing. Anything that seems to be something is a target for yoga. So if intuition seems to be a certain way, or even seems to be intuition, it's like, okay, cool, check that out.
When you say seems to be something, what was that?
In the broadest sense, anything. Seems to be something.
What do you mean, like a label? Like, okay, there's a chair, there's a desk.
Anything. anything thinkable or describable or even anything that is, anything unthinkable even. Just anything. In actuality, there's nothing. It's not a non-existent nothing, maybe. But it's certainly not anything. But it doesn't exclude everything.
When you're doing this kind of exploration and you get to a point where it feels unresolvable, is that what you're shooting for?
Well, you're not shooting for anything. Just go. You never arrive. Just go. It's not about getting to the goal. It's just about going. You're not heading anywhere. You're leaving behind.
Right, and that's kind of what I mean. But like, because when you get to the unresolvable, when you see that it's like it can't be resolved. Like, oh, my friend is pissing me off. Well, what's my friend? What's pissing off? What's really happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, good. So get to unresolvable, and then unresolvable becomes your target. What's that?
But it's also about being pissed off.
Sure, absolutely.
It's not about behavior control. It's about everything.
Yeah, it's about just exactly what it is, the way that it is that. But what it is and the way that it is that cannot be said or cannot be thought. And if you think it's a certain way, think it's this way or that way, then you're compartmentalizing it in imagination.
Part of doing that is also it doing.
Absolutely, everything's it doing it. And the point is to come to see that it's all it doing it. So when it's
You
all
could actually be pissed off and see.
Of course. Absolutely. I am all the time. My whole stance is one of piss off. Can't you guys tell? I mean,
It's a lot more interesting that way. You know? You just believe in the drama while not knowing it's true, you know, so.
it's a temperamental thing.
can you talk about the cumulative effects of doing yoga?
Nice body.
Well, you say that
The
like
shift will really take you.
Yeah.
Either become a master yogi or else take up rock guitar. My advice. I happen to do both.
And get a time machine and rewind yourself 20 years. No, like what you've said that when you do yoga that it's like you're always picking up where you left off in a sense.
Sure.
What's that about?
I don't know. Today I'm not going to give you anything. Today I'm just going to take away. Yesterday was good top, today it's bad top.
Yeah.
Or is it the other way around? Is it good top or bad top? Was it good top yesterday and bad top today, or is it bad top yesterday and good top today?
That's a good question. Depends on how you look at it. The taker away might be the good top.
Yeah, it always sounded to me like the Advaitic approach is taking away everything, whereas you're just going in. But going in is actually taken away, right? There's no it to take away.
Well, you can't say it's taken away or not, because even whether or not it's taken away can't be found. Nothing is negated, but there is nothing. But there never was anything, so nothing's being taken away. You can say you abandon based around this fantasies, that things are a certain way when they never were. But since they never were that way, you're not losing anything. You're not taking anything away. You're just seeing. You're just seeing what has always been the case.
I have a new ending to the story. Help me out here.
I like
I
it.
liked your ending last time. So the curator shows up.
Right,
The painter's painting.
right.
And the curator says, "Where is it?" And the painter says, "That's what I thought."
I like it.
I like it too.
I like it. Very good, very good. You'll be able to sell it to the Zen guys.
Yeah.
They'll eat that shit up. They'll eat that shit up. You know, have it produced in Germany.
Yeah, for sure. I can see it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
I got the movie
It's a
all over.
natural. No,
Gotta
no,
get started
dude.
with Chinese then.
Yeah, well, I can help.
Peter, these tankas seem to have, it's a different culture, but like the Indians have Nataraj, and that seems something similar, but I think it's different.
Mm-hmm.
What are those archetypes point at?
They're all symbolizing different aspects of, different apparent aspects of actuality. Everything is symbolizing different aspects of actuality. Or another way to put it is all apparent patterns convey flavor. And the flavor is, of course, the flavor of actuality, because what other flavor could it be? And the range of flavors is virtually infinite. Not virtually infinite, literally infinite. Actually infinite. How about that? But they're all flavors of this. So you have an image of a form that's pointedly a certain way, and with certain colors it conveys a flavor. You have a story. I tell a story about someone busting in with an Uzi and killing us all. That's another image that conveys a flavor. You know, anything is an image that conveys a flavor. And all of these flavors are flavors of this. But to get to this, if you really go into what the flavor is, it doesn't resolve into some concrete simplicity. It opens into this richness. So every one of these, with all of their different implications and flavors, are images of the same thing.
And so the seeming patterns that they have are sort of you can say cultural inclinations.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. The flavor is there with or without the culture. Culture itself is just another flavor. You know, you could look at these things, and you could look at Greek icons from the Greek Orthodox Church or whatever, and you're just getting little snippets of flavor.
Or you can go have Indian food.
Sounds good. Soon, very soon. 5 minutes.
Peter, can you use the term unresolvability the same as just saying infinity?
Yes.
It's the same.
They're exactly the same. Infinite means without ending, without boundary. Fin, F-I-N, means ending. And in means not, indication. So without ending, without boundary. And unresolvable means exactly the same thing. Unresolvable means if you go into it, you never come to an end. Or an ending, like in terms of investigation, you never come to an ending of the investigation. There's always more, and you never like, oh, now I get it.
I'm almost saying like it's infinite, it's a precursor to unresolvability.
No, same thing, there's no pre or post. Just this.
Peter, you said the final liberation was when you didn't need to be liberated.
Yes.
But wouldn't you need to be liberated in order to not need to be liberated?
Seems like a paradox, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You need to be liberated in order to know you don't need to be liberated. But you never need to be liberated.
But you do need to know.
Well, you don't need to know. Most people don't know. Everyone's totally liberated and they're wandering around not realizing it. It's all good. Since they're liberated, they don't need to know. It's only those of us that are perverse enough to care that waste our time coming to these kind of talks that care enough to actually discover, to do all this effort and work to discover that you didn't need to do the effort and work. You know, something to do. Keeps you off the street.
You gotta do the math.
Yeah. You gotta do the math if you think you have to do the math. Most people don't think that.
Yeah, but most people worry about stupid shit like Donald Trump, so I'd rather be here worrying about this kind of stuff.
But that's your taste.
Yeah.
Most people might say exactly the opposite. They look at what on earth are these people talking about? What is this gibberish? You know, did you hear what Trump tweeted last night? That matters. That's important. What's this infinity stuff? What does that even mean? And they're right. What does it even mean? These people that are in here talking, thinking they're talking about something. Really?
I guess it goes back to that specialness thing you were talking about, where it's like,
Yep.
there's nothing.
Yep. You know, this is really good. It's really good.
TKO. Total knockout.
No easy, no oozy needed.
Yeah, feel this feeling in the air. This is what I like to take a retreat to. Is this right here? This is really good. Feel it, enjoy it.
The hunger.
Must be lunchtime.